Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
31st of March 1993, the Royal Air Force Base at Cosford in the UK encountered a triangular UFO which fired a beam of light at the ground before speeding away. At the same time, dozens of triangular UFOs were reported across the middle of the UK and the Westcountry. Join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we discuss the Cosford UFO Incident.
Hello listeners and welcome to Aliens Explored, your weekly look at the mysterious skies, real, faked, imagined. I'm one of your presenters, Neil Kelly.
And I'm your other presenter, Stu Jackson. How you doing, Neil?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you. Yes. Have you recovered from last week's episode where I threw you for a bit and presented you with some faked footage and then...
It was. I feel like I've won, so it's only... the score is only 67-1 to you now. So yeah, I thought it looked fake, and it was this time.
67-1. This is actually episode 69. We're on. Yeah. So 67-1. That makes it. Yes. Sorry, my maths suddenly went crap.
Yeah.
It's a long day. It was definitely an interesting topic. And speaking of interesting topics, we got an interesting one today.
Yeah, we're back to the UK for this one, aren't we? Back to the Midlands.
We are. The UK may be a small island. Is the UK count as an island?
The UK, I remember being told once in school that it's made up of 1,000 islands, but only one and a bit significant. Actually, no, more than one and a bit, isn't it? Because there some of the islands around the UK are quite significant. Skye, the Isle of Man, the Isle of Wight. But so yeah, we're in like an archipelago, but mainly it's the large island chunk of Great Britain, England, Scotland, and Wales, and you add in the Northern Ireland, and that makes the United Kingdom.
Okay, we're a small group of countries, but we have our share of UFO encounters. That's where I was going with that.
Well, and what we have in common with America, in terms of being a possible attraction to UFOs, is we have American air bases, and we have nuclear capable bombers and missiles and all sorts bristling on our little island. Our little North Korea in Northern Europe.
Well, nuclear power, nuclear weapons seems to be something of a draw for UFO activity. Now, I don't know if this is because around these areas people are more vigilant. I'm saying people. I'm talking, the military and security services and things like that are much more vigilant around those areas, so they happen to notice them more.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of their job to be vigilant, isn't it? If their job is air defence, you've got to keep watching the skies with radar and the naked eye and aircraft and all sorts. So, yeah, nothing really should get past you. There should be nothing that comes into your airspace that you don't know about.
But it is a recognised phenomenon within ufology that, air bases, nuclear sites, they have more UFO activity than civilian places, I suppose. Airports get quite a lot of... I wonder if it's simply because that's where people are looking upwards far more. And if they looked upwards anywhere else as much as they do there,
Hmm.
would we see more is there more UFO activity going on all over the world that we just not
seeing?
noticing?
And why are people in rural areas in the southwest United States more likely to see a UFO than someone in London or New York? Well, yeah, you're probably you've got a lot more sky to look at, and
Light pollution,
a lot less light pollution, a lot fewer obstacles. If you're in a big city like London, you can only see a little bit of sky directly above you. Whereas if you're in Texas, you can see for hundreds of miles.
Yes,
and you'll see anything.
Yes, and you can see it.
You can see it, yeah. So possibly that's a reason for it: better visibility, and in the case of airports, air traffic control, air defense systems, they're actually 24/7 on the alert for anything in the sky that, things that are meant to be there, and also in the possibility of something that turns up that's not meant to be there.
Yes. Well, taking us back 28 years here in the UK, there was definitely an airbase on alert.
Yeah, now
nice segue there. Come on,
and interestingly, not a sort of frontline airbase, but more sort of training base, isn't it? Cosford, RAF Cosford.
I believe so. I don't know that much about them as an RAF base, I'll be honest. But to give our listeners a bit of an overview of where Cosford is. Now, Cosford is in what we call the Midlands. So if you picture the UK as a country, it's about 2/3 of the way down, because the top third-ish is Scotland. So when we talk about the Midlands, we're talking about the middle of England. So it's about 2/3 down the country in County Wolverhampton. This is a normal place, really. Nothing outstanding about it, except there's an RAF base, which there is, they're dotted all over the country anyway, aren't they?
Yes, so RAF Cosford, it's in the Midlands, and when we say the Midlands, for those not familiar with the geography of the United Kingdom, if you look at Birmingham, Wolverhampton, around that sort of area, Blackcountry, I suppose places like Nottingham and Leicester count
Nottingham's
Midlands.
In the north. How dare you?
Nottingham's the north, is it? Okay, so you can see it's a fine line. So yeah, Nottingham, because you're getting up towards Sheffield.
Sheffield's definitely now as a Yorkshireman myself.
Yeah.
We're Northerners. Yeah, fiercely proud of it.
We're Northerners. Yeah. So there's this thin band across the middle of that we call the Midlands. It's nothing to do with like Middle America. It's just in the middle of the country. It's neither north nor south. They don't identify with either. Birmingham, home, birthplace of such great bands as Black Sabbath, The Move.
I've
Led Zeppelin,
idea.
Are they from there?
I've no idea. Noddy Holder. That's kind of the limit of my.
Noddy. Yeah, Noddy Holder, Slade. That's Blackcountry, Wolverhampton.
Anyway,
Blackcountry. So RAF Cosford. It's not a militarily interesting base. I read a story about an earlier because they have some form for UFOs at Cosford, where a flying saucer allegedly landed in the 1960s. Talk about that in a minute. But RAF Cosford, if you Google it, the first thing that comes up is go and visit the RAF Museum in RAF Cosford, and you can sit in the cockpit of a Cold War era Phantom jet. You can buy soft toys.
Nice.
You can basically you can look at So it was listed as a training camp. So it's not it's not a frontline unit as far as I can tell.
Well, you said that was the most interesting thing about it. I would disagree. I would say that in 1993, in March, that was the most interesting thing about it, because they had a major event with a triangular-shaped UFO at an altitude of 200 feet. Low humming noise reported by MOD police patrols as firing a beam of light scanning the ground before flying away at speed in a southeasterly direction. Southeasterly, for our listeners, would be heading towards London, but London many, many miles away. I say
Yes.
many, 200.
Well,
yes.
by our standards, it's a huge distance. Yeah, if you live in Texas, it's probably where it was the distance you travel for a night out. But and it was speculated that this was that the Pentagon took an interest in this event, and it formed part of their AATIP, the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, because in military Air Force terms, anything that's in the air that they don't know what it is a potential threat.
And I think it's only common sense that the Pentagon had taken interest in this because it is an unidentified object. You know, it's sort of scanned the ground with this beam of light. Yeah, of course the Pentagon are going to take an interest. And you've got, like, possibly your most credible witnesses of all. It's an RAF base, and you've got Ministry of Defence police patrols reporting it. Can you get much more credible than that as a witness?
So these are not people who are just going to, it's not mentioned down the pub. They're going to have to file an official report. They're
also putting their careers on the line by reporting a UFO. Because, I mean, well, you've been in the military. I don't imagine there's a high tolerance for people saying outlandish things like, I saw a UFO in the military. I expect they get the piss taken out of them quite badly.
UFO is a bit of a trigger. If you said, what the fuck is that over there in the sky? I can't make it out. Is it one of ours? So, I mean, I guess unless you're actually doing an air defense job, if you're in the military and you see something in the sky that's not supposed to be there, you kind of assume it's supposed to be there, because you kind of assume that the air defence people are doing their job, and if it wasn't meant to be there, they'd be shooting at it.
But amongst the people sort of on the ground, amongst your mates, they're gonna. I mean, the machismo side of it alone.
There's machismo, a very low tolerance for tall tales. Even though squaddies, anyone who's in the military will know that service personnel tell tall tales all the time, usually in which they're the hero, and often involving accidents in toilets. But that's war stories. They love telling war stories. UFOs, it's a little bit,
anything other. Anything strange, anything that they're inexplicable is gonna, because if it's inexplicable, it's scary.
And I think service personnel will be a bit more specific. If you told them you'd seen something in the sky that you couldn't make out, they'd be interested. If you said to them, "I believe in UFOs," they just say, "Oh, get lost." Yeah. It's that sort of thing. If you can focus on a specific thing, over there's something that shouldn't be there.
How dare you stand out from the crowd?
Yeah. Now, apparently, the severity of this was kind of stepped up, because dozens of triangular-shaped UFOs were reported moving in the sky across Western Britain around the same time.
Somerset. That's, again, I mean, you mentioned at the beginning about rural areas of America. That is a rural... a
rural area of Britain where people have a good view of the sky, and that's where you're going to see things like shooting stars. You're not going to see it in the city.
Or triangular-shaped UFOs, as was reported.
Now, in Somerset, out in the country, a police officer with a group of scouts reported seeing aircraft described as looking like two Concords side by side and joined together. Doesn't the American Blackbird reconnaissance plane look a bit like that?
Well, like two Concords
side by side.
Sort of. I get where you're coming from.
Let's
are
have a look
there
at a Blackbird
dozens
spy
of them?
plane?
That's the thing.
No.
I mean, we're talking about dozens. And I would have thought that something as notable as a blackbird would be recognisable.
It would be. I mean, a blackbird is basically it's something straight out of Thunderbirds. It's a long fuselage. It's got a delta wing, which is quite swept back. So it's got this long bit of fuselage in front of the wing. Then this delta wing which goes all the way to the tail, and then on the delta wing are two large engines, each of which has a tailplane on it. So you could see how that could look like two Concords joined together.
Theoretically, if you take out the fuselage in the middle.
Theoretically. Or if you just don't see it right, or...
Yeah, but I do think, I mean, all right, one might argue that, well, a UFO or an extraterrestrial vehicle is a bit of a stretch, but I would say a blackbird is a bit of a stretch.
Possibly, but, it would be an unusual sight in the sky. But then, of course, it would probably make a very different sound. It's a Mach 3 plus strategic reconnaissance
craft. Not known for their low hum.
It's gonna no, not known for their low hum and their gentle warbling
and
flight.
Not known for flying in formations of dozens.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's very much a solitary craft. So we can speculate as what's now. RF Cosford has form for this kind of thing because back in the 1960s, December 1963, a song that Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons remember fondly. There were a report by two trainee airmen on the base that they'd seen this dome-shaped UFO come down behind a hangar.
Right.
And they reported. And what was funny was that the way the RAF reacted to it. I mean, this went all the way up to the wing commander, who extremely senior officer, who's in charge of buoy entrance. I mean, so these would have been young trainees, possibly. I don't know if they even train 16-year-olds. Britain is one of the few countries, I think it's the only country in the developed world that recruits children. Instead of going into the sixth form at your high school to do your
sixth
A-levels,
form is 16 to 18-year-olds.
Yes, you can go in the army and become a junior leader, or you can go into, I guess you can go the Air Force or the Navy. They
start the recruitment process even before that with the Air Training Corps and things like that kids go to after school clubs, basically, where they teach them how to
cadets,
be
army cadets,
soldiers.
Yeah. Well, and that's greatly increased in recent years. So, but I think these were possibly people who, possibly under 18, that they'd seen this dome-shaped thing that came down behind a hangar and then flew off again. A signalman said that he'd seen it was a railway signalman was thought to have seen it, but he was quoted saying nothing unusual. He thought that the boys they refer to them as boys all the time, may have seen reflections of lights in clothing store windows. So I guess RAF Cosford isn't out in the middle of nowhere. They watched it for a couple of seconds. A green beam of light came out from the object and swept around it like a searchlight. The two boys watched it for about 2 minutes and then ran off to tell the duty officer, by which time it had gone. They were interrogated at length by the camp commandant and fellow officers because I guess they took it seriously. But the Air Ministry's first response to the press was that two of their young students, apparently not altogether sober, so a bit of underage drinking was involved here, had been up to some pre-Christmas
We're assuming
prank.
they're underage, so it might not have been underage drinking. But drinking, nonetheless. We're making an assumption about their age.
Yes, but they refer to them as boys.
Could be 18, 19-year-olds.
And in this, but this article from 1964 specifies that Cosford is a training station. It's not operational. These two boys could see this thing coming down.
So do you get many beams of green light coming from reflections in clothing shop windows?
I have seen that, if you've got a green neon light, but I suppose that wasn't too common in 1964. They changed their story from saying that these two students who were drunk and who had mistaken what they'd seen, when the RF were asked again, suddenly these previously drunken students had become sober and were practicing a hoax.
Of course they changed their story. You used the word interrogated. So of course they changed their bloody story. They were told that is not what you saw. How dare you have seen a UFO?
Yeah, but that's when people started to be people who were prepared to accept the explanation of a hoax suddenly became incredulous because they said, "Well, why have you changed your story?" I mean, part of it could be some officer cropped up and said, "No, we can't have a story about underage children who are in our care. We are in loco parentis." The military is, we've allowed them to get drunk. We can't put that story out. But anyway, so it's Cosford has previous form for associations with UFOs.
The date that this occurred, the 31st of March 1993, exactly a year before, there was a similar occurrence over in Belgium. This sudden spate of lots of triangular-shaped UFOs being spotted across the country. It was almost like a duplication from exactly a year before in Belgium. Very bizarre indeed.
One of the possible causes cited of these triangular-shaped craft are sky lanterns. So if we got half a dozen of us and we stood in a sort of V formation, a wide V formation in a field, and all released on a clear, because I mean these things don't fly in wind. I know from experience, you send one up when there's even a fairly slight wind, it will crash and set fire to things. If we all released a sky lantern at the same time, would it take the form of would it retain its triangular shape in the sky and give the illusion of a triangular craft?
Well, there's in terms of coming up with this description of a triangular craft, they are talking about 3 lights on this thing, but they do talk about a dark shape as well.
But we've discussed this before, where if you got the lights, it can give the appearance that there's something substantial in between. These are the running lights of a larger dark object, when actually they're not.
It can, but
they're just lights.
The whole lantern thing, the idea that they would stay sort of independently in the same formation and suddenly shoot off at speed.
Not for long. They wouldn't do that.
Beams of light scanning the ground. Yeah,
they wouldn't do that.
I'm going to say no on the whole sky lantern thing. I like the thinking, but no.
I mean, I think for me, this whole UFO thing around military bases is the way the military reacts to it, and the fact that they do change their story, and you can speculate as to why they might have changed their story. Part of it might have been to do with they want to change the facts for some reason, or they're worried that it will allude to something they're trying to keep secret, or it could just be something as simple as we don't want to say that underage airmen are allowed to get drunk or have access to alcohol.
Could be that,
on our
because
bases.
Certainly in 1993, that story was not changed. That was supplied. Like I say, we're talking about MOD police patrol. Who officially
reported
an official report. I mean, that that's surely got to give it some credibility.
More so the 1964 one, where it's two young
Yes.
boys who were presumably off duty. They had no kind of air defence duty at the time, so they wouldn't have made any kind of official report. They just ran and told the duty officer that something has come
And
down
yet
behind
their
the hangar.
initial report says about a beam of light sweeping the ground, exactly like in 1993.
A green light.
I find that fascinating. So, yeah, I think their second story is the fabrication. In the 1960s.
The one that the second story that they were sober and
a hoax.
A hoax.
Yeah.
Well, of course, if it's just a hoax, they don't have to tell. They don't have to actually recreate the green beam of light, do they? They just have to say they saw one. But
yeah, I can see them being threatened into saying it was a hoax. Definitely.
And of course, if you're going to do an April Fool's joke, a nighttime joke, because April Fool isn't it the rule that you're not allowed to do it after midday or something?
Plenty of people
April
do.
the 1st. Plenty of people do, but I thought that was the rule. So if you wanted to do some sort of, if you wanted a hoax story in the press on the 1st of April, then you'd have to create something for them to report on the 30th or 31st of March, wouldn't you? So if you send up your fake UFO, so it appears in the paper on April the 1st. The date is it makes it suspicious as well.
Yes, but again, with that sort of thing, you get people coming forward afterwards saying, "Ha ha, fooled you," which nobody has done.
No,
nobody has done.
No.
Interesting. I mean, it sounds like you're definitely looking for reasons to dismiss this.
I'm looking for, I think that's my job on this podcast, isn't it? To think, what, but not just to say, well, no, I don't believe in UFOs and there's no way that was UFO. I think it's more just to ask, what else could this have been?
I think that, I think that's the job of all of us to do that. Obviously, I'm coming at it from more, but aliens are a real possibility.
Yeah, like when you're alone at home at night and something suddenly crashes to the floor in the kitchen, and you think, "What could that possibly be?" Apart from someone breaking into the house to kill me.
So
yeah,
so you've got an easy explanation for that.
A cat who has started entertaining a visitor at nights. A couple of times I've woken up with two cats on my bed, two black cats. Is that lucky or is that double unlucky? Really just facing off. I think the other cat comes in and eats his food. There's some food in the spare room here. A little bowl of
magnetic
dried
cat
food.
Flaps. You can get these things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what we got, and it's operated on Scaramanga's chip. But we also leave an upstairs window open. He likes to go in and out, and he likes to sit on the windowsill with a nice view over the garden.
So you reckon that's where this other one's coming in?
That's where this other one's coming in. And sometimes, especially if my wife has to get up very early in the morning and I don't want to be disturbed, I can bunk down in here under the window, and that's when I've woken up with two cats on my bed.
Right.
The one who's supposed to be sleeping there with me, and the one who's his visitor.
We've digressed quite a bit there.
there.
Back on Cosford then, because we've hit that point in the show. Was it another worldly visitation? Well, let's focus on 1993 at Cosford. So we know there was other UFO activity happening in the country at the time. Let's put that to one side. Let's put the 1960s event sort of to one side. But it's interesting that there are some similarities between the two events. But 1993 at Cosford,
and
this triangular ship, this triangular thing comes along, fires a beam of light at the ground, shoots off. Was it otherworldly visitation?
Who can say? I mean, faced with it like that, I can only say, well, I just have to take the word of the people who saw it and reported that that's what they saw. No one knows where it came from. Well, they know where they came from, but we don't know.
Presumably there's an intelligence behind it, which is an assumption. I think it's a reasonable assumption, but it's an assumption. I mean, I, for one, am absolutely convinced that this was an otherworldly visitation. I also wonder if maybe there isn't something more going on at Cosford than a simple training unit. Is there something going on underground, and this is why these scans are taking place? That wouldn't be unheard of.
Well, do you know, Cosford is a place we could visit.
It is a place we could visit.
We could go to the museum and have a look around. And
I can take my Geiger counter.
We should do this.
We absolutely watch this space, listeners, for us visiting UFO hotspots.
That's what's unusual about most air bases, like Lakenheath or Roswell or anything like that. No, you can't just go and visit, but Cosford you can.
Yeah, maybe there's something more going on. What do you think, though, listeners? Is this just a case of mistaken identity? And maybe it is a Blackbird spy plane. Who knows? Or do you share my view that this is something otherworldly and they are making their presence known? Do let us know via the usual means. You can contact us on Facebook, on Twitter. You can send us an email by emailing aliensexplored@gmail.com, and we would also love for you to leave us a cheeky review wherever you listen to your podcast as well, and they really, really do help. Join us next time, though, when we're going to be having a look at the organisation, the Mutual UFO Network, and we're going to be doing a bit of an overview on them. MUFON for short.
MUFON.
So don't miss that one. In the meantime, keep watching those skies over the RAF bases, air bases, nuclear sites, all the skies. And the skies.
And the skies, with a healthy dose of skepticism and try not to be too drunk. If you're drunk, you're drunk. That can't be helped.
Use alcohol safely, though.
Yes.
On that note, we will see you next time.
Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.